Well, welcome, John Jennings,
Hello, that's me.
also known as Segs. Why Segs, by the way?
Well, that was back in the day of the early punk wars, really. Actually, more interested in that because Ruffy, the drummer, and Paul Fox, who was the guitarist in Ruts, before they were in the Ruts, were in a band called Hit and Run,
Uh-huh.
and it was like a funk band actually, but very good. Uh, and Malcolm used to come down and sort of DJ sometimes and be generally very cool. And I was inverted commas the roadie, but I used to just go along because I was Ruffy's mate. But one of the singers was a guy called JD Nicholas, and very very funny guy who went on to replace Lionel Richie in the Commodores.
Oh, wow.
Um, and he sang, Night Shift.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
song, he goes, and that bit that goes, Jackie, he was a friend of mine. That
Uh-huh.
was actually him. So
Right.
he kind of gave me my name in a way because he used to say it was so funny, this band, and he used to go, oh, that's a bit below the belt, oh, that's a bit below the Segs, a bit below the Blakeys, being the metal things on the bottom of your shoes.
Yeah.
And so I got ended up called, when we started the band, Mal was maladjusted, Malcolm maladjusted, Paul was Paul Leshane, and I became Vince, my middle name, Vince Segs, Vince Segs, and it just stuck. I mean, basically the lowest of the low, really. So the only way was up. I haven't told that story for a while, actually.
Well, it could have all been different, couldn't it? 'Cause you started off as a telephone engineer with the post office.
Yeah.
So how did you get into music from there then?
Well, basically, I started working for the post office when I was 16. I was going to start school,
Hmm.
and I didn't, due to various reasons. But 16, my dad said, "Well, you got to get a job." And then a guy up the road used to work for International Telephones, and he said, "Well, I'll show you how to get through the interview. Just say, because he said, I'll tell you at the interview." He goes, "Yeah, what do you like? Do you like electrical stuff?" And you go, "Oh yeah, I'm always taking apart radios and
Uh,
hair dryers and so I got the job like that. I didn't tell him actually everything I took apart actually could never fix and never worked again. I got the job, and it was a bit of cut above because it was the international telephones right at St Paul's there, Faraday House.
yeah.
So at 16, I was right in. Um, I was already into music. I was very very into funk music and reggae music because my sister was like about 5 years older than me, and she used to bring home reggae tunes.
Hmm.
So I used to walk around that area, St Paul's, Cheapside, and buy and go to Rupert Street Market in Soho and just buy secondhand and advanced copies and stuff like that of all this music. So
Yeah.
that was my basically my life. So lunchtimes I used to walk around, and one of the shops I used to go in was a shop called James Asman, and guess who worked there? Dave Ruffy. So that's how I met Dave. Um, and the story is kind of well documented. He was going in there and buying imports because he had the kind of very cheap American imports. But he also had stuff like Iggy Pop and stuff like that. And he didn't have any singles. But then when punk happened, he started getting all these singles. And anyway, I walked in there one day and he said he'd shaved his beard off and he said, "Listen to this. I'm putting the Ramones on." And we both went, "Oh Jesus, like forget everything else." So that's so simple and so good. So that was the story there. And then eventually he was in this band Hit and Run. So I started going along to and met Foxy. Malcolm had these sort of punk lyrics. I ain't sophisticated and stuff like that. And they kind of went in to do a sort of demo. Ruffy was on bass, and I was there um, trying to get along with Malcolm, who was quite awkward at that time, but actually became really great friends. And yeah, so they did a sort of demo, and shortly after that, because they were doing the sort of punk music, it was all supposed to be a laugh. They got kicked out of the band, and so they said, "Right, we're going to form the Ruts, basically. Do you want to be the bass player? You'll have to get your hair cut." And I thought, no, there's no way I can do that. And I just went, yeah. So the first rehearsal was basically going around to Paul Fox's house to see how much dope I could smoke. and Malcolm sat there with his big thing and just smoking this big pipe, and my head was on the ceiling, and then Foxy taught me the first bass line really. He went, "Can you play this on bass?" And I played a bit. I had a guitar, so
Hmm.
I could play some riffs, and so I got it. And he went, "Okay, great." And then the next, that was a sort of like personal, um, you know, audition, as it were. And the second one was actually got in the studio and see if we could play with a band. Because kind of got the job before I'd even played with a drummer, really. And then, yeah, the rest is history, really. So
Right.
I look back on
Um,
it now, like, yeah, I can't believe me and Ruffy are still friends, really, after all that. Really.
how did songwriting typically work in the band?
How much work?
How did songwriting typically work in the band?
Now,
Oh,
but
you just
back
kind of,
then, back then, we used to just jam and like something like in the rut.
yeah.
I I had an acoustic guitar. I sat at home and I had that down, 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 down. I sort of did that, and then Foxy would just play along with it. Most of the time, Foxy would have great riffs, and he'd just go like that and say, "Play that," or I'd just play along.
Hmm.
Something like West One, he'd go, "No, I think something like this." We just jam in this squat. We our friends had a squat. We used to go down and had a thing set up in the basement. We just used to jam along. We called it onto an old cassette player that Ruffy had, stereo with two mics, and then we go home and listen to it and go, "Oh, that bit's great, that bit's great," and they became songs. And then we used to play them, and then Malcolm would come in and just with his book and just start singing lyrics. So I said this story the other day. Something like it was cold. After every gig, we used to go back to Malcolm's place, and he had these big speakers, and he'd play anything from craft work to anything. And this particular time, he said, "I want to do one like this," and he got Mr. Blue Sky by I was going to say UFO ELO, and he put on the bit that goes down, which was the best bit of the record. Let's face it. So I kind of went down, 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 and then Foxy just went bang, splang, bang, and Malcolm just started singing. It was cold and roughy, and that was it. And so we used to write like so going through the years, like Rude Boys. Foxy said, "I got this," and I'd just play, and Ruffy would go. Malcolm would sing, and we'd have to do work on it afterwards. And
Hmm.
then
Yeah.
we go, "Well, where did you go?" And they go, "How about this?" Foxy, "Boys, there in at the Rude Boy," and it'll come out pretty fast.
Hmm.
These days it's a little bit different, but we do all lots of different things. But don't, in those days we were together all the time, and obviously we've all grown up, got families, been through families, had kids,
Hmm.
and so you're not together all the time, just boozing and having a laugh. Except when you're on tour. And now, I come up with some riff. Lee might have a riff. Ruffy got an idea, or even an idea for a rhythm. Most of the lyrics come from me, but they also come from um, conversations we have about society and what's we're
Hmm.
still we still think lots of things are wrong. You know what I mean? So get really annoyed about it. Although we still do have a laugh, uh, we do get really annoyed about current situations. We're not really political per se, but our politics are really self politics about how to carry oneself, I suppose. So
Hmm.
I get really annoyed, but I try not to write too angrily. I'm trying to provide answers, but that's what we kind of try and do. And
Hmm.
if the answer is dancing to our music or coming along and going yeah, then a bit of job done. It might not change the world, but it lets
Yeah.
people off the hook for a night, doesn't it? It lets people also realise that there's other people out there that kind of think in a similar way. I guess
Yeah.
that's
What sort of things annoy you these days?
what sort of thing. What?
What sort of things annoy you these days?
Oh, governments, plastics in everything.
Yeah.
Oh, all those things, or parking meters. I mean, for me, I don't think I kind of toyed with the idea of anarchy like we all did, but anarchy doesn't really work because really, if there's five of you in the room and you go, "Yeah, we're anarchists," And then someone said, well, what should we do? And someone will go, yeah, let's go down the pub. And everyone go, all right. So there's always a leader. There's always someone. But autonomy is my thing. And I think all of the band is like that, self-rule. So, I personally, when you're talking about things annoying me, I won't park on a crossing. I won't park if there's an old lady crossing. I won't, but I don't like it when I park because I think I can park outside the shop and then you get a ticket because it's pointless. It's obviously about revenue and not about the rights and wrongs of the world. So I don't mind rules and I don't mind regulations if it's for the good of the people. But that really annoys me. What really annoys me is really paying politicians loads and loads of money to do fuck all and get free meals. You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
that really annoys me. And some of the things that they do, just I'm 68 years old now. You sort of look at them and you go, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?" Because that's not going to change anything. That's obviously just going to, forward your intentions and forward the people that you've done deals with, and it's nothing about the people. So, you know, um, we are all in the band pro the people, really.
yeah, yeah.
That's our only politics, really. We come across as politically, but politically incorrect.
Well, I was about 8 years old in 1977, so I had to play catch up later on and get into all the punk stuff later. But what was it like being there at the time, especially in London? You know, when punk really just started to take off.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But it's not like anybody said it was, or even like we say it was anymore, because it's been a lot of water under the bridge since then. But I was really only 21, So 76, I was 20. 77, I was 21. And this was my first time. And never, I could say the music business now, but I didn't know what that was. We loved music. We loved playing together. And it was a chance to be in a band. I mean, fantastic. Never thought it would last. Never even thought, well, none of us did. We never even thought we'd be alive. You know, when you're 20, you don't think past 40. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about 40. And then your parents are old, aren't they? And everyone's old, and you're just, I'm sure the kids are like that today, but we were just doing it. But then this whole movement happened, and the punk thing was very much like, you can do this. You don't have to be posh. You don't have to have a degree in music. You don't have to be really good on guitar. You can just play. And then,
Mm.
of course, we had sniffing glue and stuff like that. Not the sport,
The
the
fanzine.
magazine, which was, and basically Mark Perry printed, here's three chords, they'll start a band, and that was the essence of it, really. Of course, by '79, like the Pistols were over, and John Lydon came out with Public Image, which was amazing.
Mm.
So we're looked upon like a '79 band, but we actually formed in '77. It's just that we didn't have any money. We made the record, we made it in a rut in early '78, and we didn't have enough money to put it out till '79. I get bored with that. Who was first, and it doesn't really matter. Does it? As far as I'm concerned, the first punk single, that out of the UK was The Damned. So happy days.
So, what was it like the first ever time you went into a recording studio? What surprised you the most? It was in a rut, wasn't it? Your first recording.
Well, as I went on, to places like the Townhouse and stuff like that, they were like spaceships, but so to me. But the first recording studio was still like a spaceship, only probably sort of very utility one, 8 track. Um, just great. I can't really remember if I was nervous or not. I can't really remember. I remember the first gig and being really nervous, but we were so friendly together, such good mates. We just went in. It was a laugh. I think, you know,
Mm.
we went out to the cafe and got a sausage sandwich or something, and went in there. We had to be there at 10 and turned up and we just played. We did In the Rut, HIs, and Society on that session, which you
Mm.
can now get on a 12-inch actually through Henry Rollins. But um, we got some on our website, but I hadn't heard those sessions and the story behind it till Rollins re-released it. I forgot about Society and everything. But I mean, what Foxy was very, very good producer. He'd obviously a bit longer in the tooth than the rest of us, and he did that. If anyone out there's listening and you put in a rut on now, there's this kind of dub bit in the middle, but Foxy just walked up to the desk and just went, "Oh yeah, we're gonna," and like faded the drums, the bass and the drums out, and then faded them back in on the 8 track, and with his guitar playing like this, it was like mind blowing. Really, I was like, "Wow, this is like dub music," which I loved. But I didn't have any clue how to do it, and obviously in Jamaica and everything, they did 8 track, they did 4 track, and even sometimes 2 track, but. Um, later years, it was 24 track, 32 track, and even 48 track, and which just kind of basically puts off decision making. Really, they get loads of parts. Yeah, so that was an amazing session. We were probably drinking Red Stripe or something. So it wasn't that we were drunk; it's just the excitement of it. We just did it, and then it came out, and then wow, it took another 18 months at least to actually get that bit of vinyl in my hand. And when we got that, my mum said, I played it to my mum quite proud, and she went, "Oh, that's very pleasant." And I thought, that's not what you're supposed to say. You're not supposed to be radical.
Yeah.
But I think she meant well. And then, of course, then we got 1,000 of them suddenly, and they were all under Ruffy's bed. And it was like 1,000 records is quite a lot. And anyway, he sold 500 to Jeff Travis from Rough Trade.
Mm.
And he said, "Yeah, I'll have 500." And then John Peel got it for a friend of ours. He put it on. He was a record plugger, Simon Potts, if you're out there. And he put it on the. He was plugging records for A&M and these big record companies. And through our friend Bob Johnson, gave him that, and he went, "God, this is great." He put it on the bottom of the pile, gave it to John Peel, and then John Peel played it. And John Peel basically said, "Oh, sometimes I wish I'd have listened to the letters because lots of people have been writing in saying we should play this band." And he kind of fell in love with us. So next minute there was like queues around the block, and it wasn't massive because they were only a small, like the Hope and Anchor and stuff. But there was a empty Hope and Anchor, and then the week after a very very full one with loads of people that couldn't get in, and everyone we all it was the name on everybody's back of the leather jackets for a while.
Yeah.
Although we couldn't actually afford leather jackets, so we used to go to the second hand shop and buy old dressing gowns and things like that. And wear that on stage, chef's jackets. Yeah.
How did you get on with the music press? Because it was quite hostile to begin with, wasn't it, against punk?
Very much, yeah. Um, you did Gary Bushwood the other day, didn't you? You
Yeah,
said
this morning. This
yeah, yeah.
morning. Yeah.
Well, Gary was quite into us for the first bit, and then he wasn't later on. But that's another question. Um, we didn't really care because it was just about it wasn't that sort of career move. It wasn't like God, yeah. But obviously, whether you get a good review or you get a bad review, it's better to get a good review. Feel better. And so at the beginning, people were a bit, reticent with punk. I mean, now everybody said they were really into it. Now everybody said they really liked it, but I can tell you they didn't. Not journalists and not anybody on the street. I had people, when I was still, when punk started, it was still working for the post office, and people hated it so much, when they
Mm.
were to Queen and stuff like that. And I didn't really like Queen, so it was just a real movement that some people got, but some people didn't. Uh,
Mm.
and I think for all of us, it was very much like, yeah, we could, this is going to happen. When the four of us got together, it was like quite pardon the phrase, but a blitzkrieg, which is what it was all about. Blitzkrieg bop, and it was just like great. We weren't that good at the beginning, but we just used to play gigs, and then we started doing gigs with Misty Roots because um, they used to go around. Some of them used to go around Malcolm's house and have a bit of path and stuff like that. And
Mm.
we used to meet Clarence Baker, who became legendary through Jar War, and Chris Bolton. So he was black, Clarence, and Chris was white. So everything was said just in that sentence right there. We started doing gigs together just because we thought it'd be good, and then we were all traveling in a van together. And we became quite friends. That was before Rock Against Racism, really, and then Rock Against Racism happened, and we did that big tour.
Mm.
And again, people say, "Oh, Rock Against Racism," but it was much more than that. It was we were anti-racist by default because it just didn't work. You can't work and play music with black people and be racist, really. It just don't work, and you
Yeah.
can't, So sometimes a lot of people are sort of lauded as hero. Oh, what you did, but we didn't really do anything. We did was just be human.
Mm.
As Ruffy always says, there's no argument for racism, really. You can't really say, yeah, you should be racist because no, no. So it was a very, very natural. I'm saying, not putting ourselves down. I'm just saying it was very, very natural progression, that whole thing. And I'm very, very proud to be part of that. And of course, we couldn't put the record up. We didn't have any money. We only needed 100 quid, but it was a lot more money in those days, and I didn't know how to do it. And so Misty put up the money. Chris Bolton put up the money, and we put it out on their label, People Unite label, and we still use those two words today, and it's still our message. And I think that I think I'm prouder than that than anything else, really. Of course, we're proud of the music, but we still like to carry that banner without stuffing it down anyone's throat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whilst you're playing in the band, did you ever experience, or sorry, did the black guys in the band ever experience any sort of overt racism that you noticed?
Well, we had quite a lot of Zeke Hiling,
Oh, yeah.
at the front of the back, front of. Never really when Misty were playing. I mean, I don't remember that. There were skinheads used to turn up at the Rock Against Racism gigs and everything. Uh, we got then known as a bit of a left wing band, which I suppose in a way we were. But and people used to come along. I used to shit myself really because they're not very friendly skinheads. But when I look at pictures, they were like kids, man. You know what I mean? And so were we.
Mhm.
But now I just like growl and those people, not skinhead, not the proper skinheads, but people that were like 20, 19, 20, that was happening at the time. It'd be very, very scary. But actually, I know men that would rip their heads off now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, not all of them remained racist. And this is the thing you got to remember, that it was just sort of ignorance. There was a lot of different tribes, and some people chose to become skinheads just because of the fashion, and also because they're at school and they're just coming out of school, and people are saying that they're coming over here nicking your jobs and everything like that. But so I've met many people since that were like that at the time, but are really, really not now. And
Yeah.
so you do in that aspect, I do forgive and forget those sort of people. I don't forgive or forget proper the proper right wingers, because but that not just not skinheads, that goes for politicians as well. I
Yeah.
don't forgive them ever anyway. So except for Tony Benn, I don't mind Tony Benn. He's
By the
about
way,
the only one that would ever any good.
I'm not a skinhead, by the way. It's just.
Oh no, I didn't say you were. I am not. Nor am
So,
I.
did you find that when you were gigging, when you were traveling around the country, did you find the crowds different depending on where you were? Was there a marked difference between, like, let's say, the north and the south, let's say?
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'd never. I mean, I guess you don't, do you? I hadn't travelled. I was born in London. I hadn't travelled anywhere. I mean, I'd been to Southend because
Hmm.
I lived down there for a while because my dad had to move out. But but then by 16, I was back in London. So when we first started touring and going up north, it was just like remarkably more friendly for one thing. And I still stand by that today. Loved it. I love the people. When you get to Manchester, I loved it. And or anywhere, Derby, Nottingham. Everybody was really, really friendly.
Hmm.
Uh, much more than London, because London was quite up its own. I got more trouble. I got more fights. I mean, I'm not a fighter, but I got more people jumping out of vans and kicking me in the head in London than anywhere ever else, and including Glasgow. So when we went to Glasgow, by the time we got up there, the only thing we'd ever seen was these, as Ruffy says, these mad Scottish people, uh, you know, ripping football pitches up with bits of the goalpost, and it was like, bloody hell, these people are mad. But when you got up there, It was great. It was just great, and
Mm.
even the skinheads were great. And even the Skinners were really friendly, with us at least. And so we've still got an affinity with Scotland to this day. There's a famous gig we did in Dundee, and so was a real place for us. And I think that the whole divide, whole racism and everything divide really. And when I say racism, I mean it, also difference between Scottish people hating English people and English people hating Scottish people, or the South hating the North, and all that. It's a class thing. It totally is a class thing, and it obviously seems to be on the face of it more represented down in London because that's where all the politicians live, and they all live in fancy houses, which is true. But we're just the same. So when we used to go up there, there's one particular guy I'm thinking of Stuart, and all his mates in Dundee, they couldn't get into the gig, Dundee University, because the students said, no one can come in, and it was just students only. So we let them all in the back window, and I'm still total friends with that guy to this day, and because I think, you see what I mean, it was a sharing thing for us. Yeah, it's punk. We'll let you in because we don't want that divide. And I think that's why we've always got on with everyone, because for us it was like magnificent. Because
Mm.
same time we were getting out of London and didn't have to deal with that divide, because it's still a class divide. You're still, I wasn't really really poor, but I wasn't really really rich, and I never have been, and probably never will be. I've realised it at this point. I've just suddenly realised I'm probably not going to get that place in the country for my royalties with the
Yeah.
swimming pool, the guitar-shaped swimming pool. Just started realising.
Um,
I'm
well, you
still
probably
going to carry on though.
well, you're probably best known for the Babylon's Burning
Yep.
single, and that was a brilliant record, obviously. So, how did that come about, writing wise?
Well, that's quite interesting because the riff was a bit. I couldn't really play any scales, so I, I used to warm up with and like nervous, in the studio. And then one day we went on to do some demos of 5 songs, and I went and then Foxy went and then he went and Malcolm just wrote those lyrics.
Mm.
Babylon's Burning is rooted in reggae, obviously, but what he added was the with anxiety, because when you write a song, I realise now, if I'm playing it now live, what's the bit you sing along with? You sing along with anxiety, and the whole crowd goes wild. So what he added to that was great. So that's how that came about. Like many of the other songs, we were kind of on fire.
Yeah.
With the writing, it just went, and but we were only really we were together from 77. But by 80, Malcolm was dead. So we did 77, few gigs from 78, 79, we signed a Virgin. By 80, he was dead. So, I'd say 4 years, but it wasn't really even 4 years. It was, we were on the dole for the first one and a half of those, just
Mm.
mucking about, but still doing gigs. So very short lived. And then, probably another 60 years after that, we're still going. Sadly, not with everybody else, but what can I do? Well, I can't do anything about that right now.
Well, you've been on Top of the Pops a few times, haven't you? So, what surprised you the most about that? I've got lots of surprise questions. So,
Top of the Pops.
yeah.
Ah, well, that's quite easy. You watch this. Ah, God, most people in bands of my age, and at least, watch Top of the Pops, and
Mm.
it was mystical, magical, you know, rectangle or square in some cases of like magic. Watch the TV every Thursday night, 7 o'clock, I think it was. So I saw Hawkwind on there. Certain people came through that were really quite alternative, and then there was all the pop and stuff like that. So um, finally, we get to do Top of the Pops, and yeah, I mean, as I say, most people in most bands that I know cut some shapes or pretended they were miming in their hair. I didn't have a hairbrush, but the classic one, or just miming or playing along with a pair of knitting needles to Top of the Pops. Then you're there, and as you walk in, it's like, oh. it's not that magical world. It's just it's a TV studio that we've never seen before, and loads of all those girls and dolly birds, as we used to call them, like dancing about on the TV and getting shoved about by big burly men, you know. And we
Mm.
were like a bit shocked, really. And there's obviously three or four stages, so it all goes like that. So it's not just your little room, and there are all those sets that, you know, the big arrow and stuff, like all those sets. They're all set up, you know. So it's hard to explain, but that was pretty wild. And the next minute, madness. You're in the dressing room, and then madness all run into the dressing room and smash the dressing room up. All of them. All right, because they knew we were all right, and they were doing the prints, I think, and we were on there, and they all run in, and they all run out again. Yeah, not smash it up, but just throw everything everywhere, and you know what I mean. It's kind of like, and the next minute you're talking to Phil Lynott, you know,
Mm.
and the next minute you see Jimmy Savile walking down the corridors, and people going watch him, and it was known. It was known back there was something not quite right. So it was an eye opener in more ways than one, you know. And then you got Cliff Richard like doing when I was there, he was doing congratulations. I think it would be or something like that. No, not congratulations. He was doing oh that one. It's so funny. We don't talk anymore. So I think
Yeah.
I went up to him, I shook his hand. I said, "Congratulations, Cliff," because we were just. And then there was the BBC bar, of course, which was if you weren't really allowed in it, but if you were nice, you could get in there. Big commissionaire on the door. And that was a right laugh because all the bands were in there, getting, you know, and the guy, you know, whoever was representative in the record company saying, "Don't drink too much," you know, and you're like, "Well, all right, yeah." 4 pints later, you know, you got to go on now, all right. So that's why all those, a lot of those acts, it's really quite fun, you know, people mucking about because they've all been in the BBC bar.
Yeah.
So fantastic. I think we did that. 3 or 4 times did we do it? I think I can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
four, I think.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. We never did it with Jarwall though, because that got sort of unceremoniously banned because of its content. If I think now about any band putting out a record, well, Babylon's Burning for a start, but with anxiety. But if I think of any band trying to put out a record that said the truncheon came down about police brutality as a single, I think that all record companies would go, no, but to be fair, for all their faults, Virgin that happened later, but they didn't. They said, okay, put that out. You know, whether
Yeah.
they didn't listen to the lyrics or not, but it was obviously about Southall riots and police brutality. So, and I remember Dave Lee Travis, the hairy cornflake, as I used to call him, playing it. We didn't think anything about it. We're on a tour, and you know, and this is a Ruts new single. It's the third single. And then obviously you could almost hear on the radio people hearing and going, hang on a minute, I shouldn't have played that. And then it was never played again. Never played again.
Going back to Top of the Pops, one of the things that strikes me that's a lot different now to then was that, like you said, everybody watched Top of the Pops. It
Yeah.
was like a national. It genuinely was a national institution, wasn't it? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you could sit down. There was a band for everybody, wasn't there? Really. So there was something for your mum. You know, there's always a comedy record. There's always an heavy metal record. You'd have a punk band next to an heavy metal band, and then you'd have
Yeah.
a guy dressed as a chicken or something like that, you know. And I love that variety where now it just seems to be very sort of generic rhythm and blues, you know, R&B pop, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I don't know. It doesn't really exist, does it? Anymore. Yeah. What really was that? Because you could be on there and the Nolans would be on there.
Hmm.
And you know, when we were on, Patrick Hernandez was number 1 with "Born to Be Alive." You'd get Legs and Co. or Pans people before that, and then us, and then Madness. Uh, and it didn't really matter with the heavy metal bands because the heavy metal bands, we were there, Thin Lizzy we were on, you know, so we were just like getting on great. You know what I mean? It didn't really matter. It's a very thin line between punk and heavy metal, isn't it? Really.
Hmm.
But the other people used to be kind of, you know, the number ones used to be kind of whisked away into the realms of stardom, you know. whereas you still find all the other bands together in the bar at the end of the evening. We're going to make this day very special and make it last. But there was no real animosity. It was great. Great. I mean, unfortunately, as we found out later, there was a huge undercurrent at the BBC of abuse. In many
Yeah.
ways, and we were warned about it. I think by people that cared about us. Just be careful because you might, you don't know what would have happened. I mean, I was 21, I think. Uh, 23 when I did Top of the Pops, so that's not really, really young. But some of the people there, some of the kids that used to come in were quite young.
Hmm.
We won't go on about that. But I'm just saying, unfortunately, the BBC was a little bit of a flawed corporation. Yeah.
Going back to Virgin, so you signed for Virgin. Was there any offers from anywhere else at the same time?
Yeah, yeah. We were the names on the back of people's jackets, so they also with movements or scenes, like the punk scene. No one wants to sign the first band. Sex Pistols got loads of press, Damned, Stranglers, and then of course once they start selling records, they get on top of the pops. Then every record company wants their own punk band because that's what's selling.
Yeah.
So, and that's the sadness of the music business, really. So we were one of them. Uh, and then you find, so I think we had Polydor wanted to see us. I can't remember who else. Polydor, we were interested in because the Scream had come out, Susie and the Banshee. So we thought, oh, Polydor, I quite like being on the Island label because we like the Island label and because Bob Marley was on it. Um, I think United Artists, well, Buzzcocks were on that, so that's quite I think with United Artists, they didn't turn up or something, and so we just thought, well, they can't be bothered to turn up for the meeting. Then they postponed the meeting, so we were quite righteous, like self righteous, and just said, right, we don't sign with them. The reason we signed with Virgin really was because they didn't wear suits, because everyone in those days wore suits, but we didn't really realise that the sort of Aran sweaters that they were wearing were probably like 500 quid or something. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
uh, so they were just the same. They're all the same as each other, really. They're just corporate, horrible. The contracts are horrible, and we suffered from that for years. You didn't get any money for years. I mean,
Yeah.
they would argue that we owed it to them, but it's not quite as simple as that. It's like they're money lenders, basically, aren't they?
Yeah, it's because don't they sort of like charge you for the hotel rooms and all that sort of thing, but they're just videos and everything like that.
Everything.
Yeah,
I can't remember what was the time of the story, but they were saying that they actually had some trouble with going through years later, and he remembered going out for a meal, and the bloke paid for the meal, and he did this and did that. He said, "Do you want some chewing gum? Do you want a cigarette?" And yeah, he should have some chewing gum. And years later, when he was chasing the royalties, they went through. I don't know how he managed to get hold of it, but he was auditing and everything. And that night was on there, and the bloke had put the chewing gum onto his
fucking hell.
account. You know what I mean? So everything, every cab. And the worst one is really they might put your cab or anything, while they were taking another band out. Because Scabies told me that he goes, yeah, half our royalties went, when they were going to try and Stiff were going to sign the specials, they were using their account. Whether this is all true, I do not know. But anyway, we're kind of more DIY these days. We do everything. We've got our own label called Sosumi, basically. So yeah, we sort of do everything ourselves. And probably the thing is, you sell potentially less records, but earn 10 times as much from the small amount of records. So that's where we're at. But I don't think any of the big companies can sell records now. I mean, no one's selling records. You can't really sell them. You sell
Yeah.
a bit of vinyl, but we did interrupted 52,000 in here. I think Babylon's Burning single did 230,000.
Wow.
We didn't even get a silver disc for that. A silver disc started at 250,000. Now you get a
Yeah.
silver disc, I think, if you sell 5,000. But I don't know. I don't know. I still haven't got one on my wall. That's all.
Well, after obviously Malcolm had his issues, didn't he? And when all that happened, when Malcolm passed, did you consider leaving music?
Uh, it was devastating. I think I don't think I blame the music though. I think me and Ruffy were very very close, and we used to live together as well. Foxy was livid. We were because he'd blown it really. We were just in shock,
Yeah,
uh, but the way that life went, he had his issues before he went, and he just wouldn't turn up or do anything for rehearsals, and he wouldn't come. So as we were just used to get together and write when he wasn't around anyway, and then we'd have some riffs for him to come in. It's a normal process, you know.
hmm.
We started. I started writing a few lyrics, but we all started writing a few lyrics just because we didn't know what else to do,
Yeah,
and we were kind of. I wouldn't say we didn't have a captain to the ship, but we didn't. It was a bit rudderless, you know. It was really in a stormy port, and so we were carrying on anyway. So there was a big crossover period, and
yeah,
then the grey area was really after Virgin did us a favour in the long run because they said you got a mime to when we did West One got
hmm.
records of the week in four magazine, including NME, I think, because they couldn't even they couldn't be so horrible as not to give us record of the week. It was a good record, but Malcolm had died, so it was a bit would have been a bit distasteful to not do it. But of course, it went in the chart, and then they asked us. Well, you get top of the pops automatically if it goes into the top 40, and once you do top of the pops, it automatically goes up because everybody sees it and goes out and buys it. But we said, well, let's do a tasteful video. Videos are very very expensive at the time, but it wasn't really that. We didn't want to do a sort of girl in the shower kind of video, but just a sort of tasteful collage of Malcolm's pictures of Malcolm and anything we had. And they said, no, you're going to have to mime it. I'm going to have to mime it, you know,
Hmm.
get Segs to mime it. And we all said no. I said no. So bang, it went slowly out of the chart. Well, quickly out of the charts. So that was that really. Um, when we went to see him with our sort of new, we didn't know what to do because we were kind of lost. I didn't think I considered leaving music, but I don't know whether I'd even considered staying in it anyway. It was just the momentum of the band. But Foxy and Ruffy wanted to continue, so we wrote some songs and we went in with some demos. And um, they said, "Well, we said we're going to change the name because we can't be the Ruts." And they said, "If you change the name, we're going to drop you."
Hmm.
And we hated that at the time. But so we came up with Ruts. We went round to Bob Johnson, our manager at the time's house, and I think stayed up all night with various conditions, and looking through dictionaries and stuff like that with him, and it came up with Ruts DC, i.e. Da Capo, back to the beginning. I hated it at the time. We all hated it because it was a compromise, but we did it, and they went okay. But now I'm very very happy, like 40 years later, because we reformed Ruts DC, but we never did reform the Ruts, and we never. People say, "Oh, you know, yeah, it's not the Ruts though, is it?" And I go, "No, because we never ever reformed the Ruts. The Ruts with Malcolm singing, and Malcolm's dead, and he's been dead for over 40 years. So give us a break, because I
Hmm.
didn't actually start the Ruts. I didn't actually redo the Ruts. None of us wanted to do that. You know, so obviously, our whole story is tinged with tragedy and extreme humour as well sometimes. And I think Malcolm and then Paul would both be okay with that because we just used to have such a laugh as well. There was tragedy, but even in those times, we used to laugh a lot.
Yeah, you're still enjoying your music, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm probably enjoying it more now than ever. Really, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm more in my own skin now. I think, certainly on stage. Um, Uh, I wouldn't say overconfident because you never are. Sometimes the nerves hit you in a very weird way. There's- but you've got to keep your new songs going and keep this thing going. And we're lucky because we seem to be able to write songs that are in keeping with the old stuff. So when you come and see us, you know, even in an hour set, we can you still get Rude Boys, you still get Babylon, but you get the new stuff as well, and it seems to fit in. And you know, I think we won in that respect because people come and say, "Oh, why didn't you do more new stuff?" So, but you know, so we're very, very lucky, really, to have that. We did have four, not all of them were top 10, but we did have 4 or 5 singles. You know, we got
Mm.
Blue Boys, Jar War, everybody loves all that. In Babylon, in a rut, it goes on, really, doesn't it? So if you can do those, and we enjoy playing them, and people say, "You don't you get fed up playing Babylon's Burning?" And I'll say, "No, not really.
Yeah.
I still play those songs, especially Rude Boys. Every time I come out of the solo, and I just think of Foxy because I always think that brilliant what he did. He did not the solo, but the way he sort of arranged the thing and it comes out. I'm like every night I always go, "That's brilliant." That, and I
Mm.
always need to say to the boys afterwards, "That's brilliant." That, and I always forget, and I don't remember till the next time we play it. It's kind of weird.
You've been experimenting with some acoustic
Yeah.
sets. Yeah. Yeah.
Why did you ask?
No. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting actually that you're doing that. It's cool.
Well, I think no. Firstly, I was in Alabama 3 for quite a long time. You know Alabama 3? Yeah. Did
Yeah.
the theme tune to the Sopranos and everything. And I was down in a once the singer Larry or Rob. I went down to Tenby for one New Year's Eve, and he can't sit still. So the first thing he gets when he gets to a town, Tenby, he's Welsh anyway. He goes finds the late night drinking clubs, and then he sort of gathers musicians like Moss. And the next minute you're doing a gig, and go, come, we're going to do. So we're doing a gig in some pub, and he's gathered like 10 to 12 musicians, and he said, right, you know, he's singing all these songs, getting. And he said, right, I've got to go to the toilet. You know, you carry on. And I go, what? I said, what? And he goes, do Rude Boys or something. And I just did Rude Boys. I didn't really know how to do it, but I did it with the band. And these two people at the back started singing along with the chorus. So that I thought, well, okay, these songs do work. Then I got together with Lee and Ruffy because we were sort of working out how we were going to do this all the songs live when we came back. And we worked some out acoustic guitars. And if you do something like Rude Boy and acoustic, it works really well. And you think,
Mm.
oh, I didn't ever thought of that, you know, so it kind of works really well. And then along the way, we did Dead Men Walking, which is a thing we do with Jake Burns and Kirk Brandon. But we'd already done, we did, and I think Tara, my girlfriend now, she wasn't then, but she wanted to do this gig at the 12 bar. She said, do you think, you know, the Ruts would play? I said, we can't play 12 bar. We're going to get, it's too many people. I said, well, maybe acoustic. So we did an acoustic thing and it kind of became a bit legendary, you know.
Mm.
So once you got one under belt, you sort of do that. And then someone said we should make an album. So we did. And now we're on volume 3, you know.
Mm.
Don't quite know how it came about. And the new one, volume 3's got a new song in it called Bound in Blood, which came about because we were doing it acoustically, if you know what I mean. So I just we I think our big thing, you know, our thing is integrity. Really, we try and keep our integrity. Some may argue out there, but we try and keep the integrity intact. That's our sort of motto,
Yeah.
uh, along with People Unite. So I don't want to do any acoustic album just for the hell of it, or just to go, oh, you know, it's acoustic. But people come along and go, how's that going to work? And then they go home. I've seen grown men in tears, you know, which is because
Mm.
grown men with Mohicans, you know who you are, in tears because they, you know, sometimes the songs they're so broken down, and if you're telling the story about it, certainly when Malcolm and Paul are involved, the story of how it came about the song and or how I may have written some of the lyrics in later songs about them. You know, it's like I think it's a very good thing. It certainly made me a better songwriter. It certainly made the band tighter as a unit electrically as well because you know it's more difficult to play tight stuff on acoustic. So it all works together.
Yeah.
No plans to do number 4 yet, but
Mm.
but who knows?
When are you gigging next then? What was your next gig?
Uh, well, we've been on tour with From the Jam, which has been a strange curveball, but they were so nice to us. From the Jam being Bruce Foxton. Well, originally it was Bruce Foxton. A guy called Russell became the singer in From the Jam, and the drummer Rick Butler. Rick Butler left. Uh, Bruce isn't around at the moment because he's having some operations and stuff. So
Hmm.
it was a bit weird because he wasn't there, but we're doing every weekend with him. So we're back on. I think it's 17th and 18th, Northampton,
Hmm.
Road Menders. So we do two, and then there's no gigs through March through February right till the end of March. So we're gonna just get my head together really and see what happens. There's loads of songs keep coming and floating about, but songs come and they might not be rut songs at all. Songs just come and you can work with other people or not. Or sometimes we're surprised. I say I've got this song, and I don't think it's for the rut. So what do you think? And then we sort of do it with the three of us, and you think, well, why not? Or we got on the last counterculture album, we got one called Pretty Lunatics, and Ruffy just he said, look, I've been learning this New Orleans beat, and he played this sort of like hip hop beat, and I played the bass line over it, and I went home and wrote all the lyrics in one go, and I sent it back to him and said, look, I've done this, and never thought he'd go on the album, and it did, and then it's become like a kind of like an encore we do, and people sing along with it. So you never know, you never
Hmm.
know what song's going to be. You can't really write. I don't think we write and go, well, we can't do that. We just do it. And some of the songs on the album you do live a bit. Some never come out live, and some you do live. Some people don't react to, and so they probably don't go into the canon of songs that you play. But we've got so many anyway. It's like it's interesting, really.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for joining me. It's been a brilliant talk. I've really enjoyed it.
Great. Well, I could
Okay.
have gone on all night, but that's great. Okay, well, brilliant. I hope you got all everything you wanted, and of course, there's always the after sales service, the Ruts after sales service. So if you need anything, just send me an email. Say, I didn't quite catch what you said, or could you elaborate, and I'll just do it.
Oh, excellent, mate.
All
Thank
right,
you
man.
very much for
All right.
that.
Well, look, let me know when you're done and what's going to happen with it, and we'll put it on our socials and everything.
Oh, great. Okay. And just a reminder to everyone, you can buy the Ruts albums and singles from the website.
Yeah, yeah, you can. rutsdc.com.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cheers
All
again.
right.
Thank you.